Hapana is proud to be the exclusive sponsor of Shorts with Liz Clark.
Hello, listeners. Welcome back to Shorts with Liz. Today, I'm so thrilled to welcome Erica Dhawan, one of the world's leading voices on teamwork, collaboration, trust in the digital age. Erica is a Wall Street Journal best-selling author, a Thinkers 50 Top 50 management thinker, and the mind behind the books Digital Body Language, Get Big Things Done. She advises organizations around the world on how to lead through change, especially as technology and other influences shape how we work together. Erica will also join us as a keynote speaker at the HFA Show on March 16th, where she'll explore how leaders can build resilient, high-performing teams in the age of AI. Today's conversation is a preview of what leaders can start to do now to help their teams win together. Erica, welcome to the show today.
Thank you so much for having me.
Great. So listen, Erica, I think you have worked with so many incredible high-performing organizations, and yet even sometimes the smartest teams really struggle with change, right? And when you look across all of that experience, what do you think is maybe the most common or surprising mistake that leaders make when they're trying to move fast in this rapidly changing digital age?
Yeah, I think the number one issue that leaders commonly experience when they're trying to lead with speed is forgetting to value their teams visibly in a way that their teams feel it. And let me give you an example. I do a lot of executive coaching, and I was coaching a senior leader. Her name is Kelsey, and she got some feedback that her empathy was weak in a 360 performance evaluation. And she was often known for empathy. And so I started.
She wasn't empathetic about that feedback.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I started to shadow her meetings, and turns out when she was in person with her team, having a meeting, she was great at building empathy. She asked good questions. She had good body language. She knew how to motivate and build morale. But because it was a global hybrid team, when she was digital with her team, her empathy was abysmal. She was the person that would send the brief, low context messages saying THX or K, period. She would cancel video calls at the last minute when her team had prepared. They didn't know when it would be rescheduled without the lack of that face-to-face contact. She would do things like write an all caps text message right before taking off on a flight, just, getting it out, not realizing that it felt like shouting to some of her team members. And so in many ways, she had to realize that in the age of speed, valuing visibly wasn't just the handshake, the head nod, the in-person meeting anymore. It meant a lot more. It was a set of daily rituals like valuing her team's time, inboxes, schedules, changing the way she ran meetings to truly drive engagement of introverts, extroverts, those sitting in a different location or floor versus those sitting next to her. And also, it required her to think about showing gratitude in a new way, where her initial way of showing gratitude was that in-person connection, whereas now she's had to learn what gratitude looked like for different team members. Sometimes it was a quick, thoughtful response. Sometimes it was an emoji or an exclamation point in a text, or it was just taking that extra time to say, this was great work in that weekly email.
Yeah. And you're so right about people when they're all over the place and the difference between digital and in person. And I know you'll speak to that, but a little bit in your book, The Digital Body Language, you talk a lot about sort of some of these small signals and how they shape trust and the connection. So now with AI that we're all trying to get our heads around, embedded into our daily work, how can leaders really make sure that they're strengthening this human connection, except maybe accidentally eroding it?
Yeah. So, let me define digital body language, which is the title of my book for everyone as well. So digital body language are the signals and cues we send in all of our digital communications, text, email, video call, even in person with screens all around us that make up the subtext of what we actually mean, right? So the medium is the message, the tone underneath what is actually said. And, with the rise of generative AI and tools to write and communicate for us in many ways, There's a few things that really matter here to allow us to deepen human connection, not erode it. The first thing is we have to remember to use AI to augment, not erode our authenticity. I can't tell you how many leaders I've heard that have been getting feedback or even experiencing itself where they've been working with colleagues for years, and all of a sudden they're getting these clearly AI generated emails that they don't feel are authentic or on tone anymore, right? This is not how David writes his emails.
Yeah.
This feels super informal. And
There's
actually,
not even typos in his emails anymore.
it doesn't, it's actually like the messiness or the awkwardness is the new truth, right? Like it's too polished, feels insincere now.
Yeah.
And so what's important for all leaders and teams to be thinking about is how am I bringing my digital body language back, my tone and my humanity back? And I like to use a framework called the think sandwich to help leaders and teams think about this. So what do I mean by the think sandwich? It's kind of like the compliment sandwich, but for the AI world. So first, when we're writing anything, we have to think first. What am I trying to say? Like write a messy draft, like the naked draft without AI. Don't just ask AI to write the first one for you. Use your own voice. Then, then you can add AI. That's, the AI is in the middle, the meat in the sandwich to augment, to organize, to look clean, to make it more visual. People do skim messages. They don't like to read really long prose without structure or bolding and such. And then the third piece is the other element, which is think again, right? Like add your own tone, make it human. Don't make it feel so fake. Add the friction back to it of who you are, whether it's humor or laughter or whatever. And that's when you really get across, and that's where you're really able to build that connection.
I think that is so smart. And I think that is the piece, the think again, right? I think so often people get to the end, they're like, this draft looks pretty good, hit send, let's go. And I think so often they're not doing the think again. That is great advice.
Don't outsource your empathy. It
Yep.
shows. People can
Yep.
tell, right?
Yep.
So whether it's a gratitude email, whether it's a work, whether it's a condolence, like these are things that really matter.
Yep. So in Get Big Things Done, you introduce the idea of connectional intelligence, where you're using relationships, networks, and collaboration to drive results. So in a world of hybrid teams that we talked a little bit about earlier and constant change, what does connectional intelligence really look like in practice right now?
Yeah. So, in many ways, a lot of the ways that we measure relationships, especially in a more digital global world, is through quantity, like more followers, more meetings, more emails. But we all know that real value and change isn't necessarily about more connections. It's the quality. It's how you leverage your networks, teams, hybrid in person, wherever they are to drive the best results. It's not just about proximity. It's about diversity of thought. It's about breaking down those silos. And so let me give you an example of what connectional intelligence looks like in practice, and especially in an AI first world where it's easy to just go to a robot, an AI tool, and say, tell me the answer, and think that's the answer versus actually branching out and getting the best ideas from around the world. The story I want to share is in my book, Get Big Things Done. And it's about a company, a toothpaste company that had a fluoride issue. And there was a team of chemists that were developing a new fluoride. They were meshing in their toothpaste, but there was a mechanical flow issue and no one could solve it. And it was taking months. And finally, one team member said, you know what, why don't we ask a different network? And they ended up posting this question to an online community of scientists. And within 2 days, a physicist in the community solved the problem. He helped them realize it was a physics issue, not a chemistry issue. And the team at Colgate learned a few things. The first thing they realized is that they hadn't even asked the physicists at their own company, in their own office, on their own floor down the hall, how to solve this problem because they had labeled it as a chemistry problem only for the chemists to solve. The second thing they realized is that physicists that solved it would have never been worked at this company, right? By reaching out and by designing a broader question, they were able to get the right solution. And I want to share that story because in this age of constant speed and the tools we have, connectional intelligence looks like not just thinking I have all the knowledge or I have an AI tool that has all the knowledge. It's not just asking who do I know, it's how can I combine the resources? How can I broaden my questions? How can I access that diversity of thought, people, communities, ideas from around the world that then I can put into practice now?
So, your research shows that it's often the smallest leadership behaviors that might have the biggest impact. So, when teams are stretched and dealing with nonstop change, which so many of us are, what is one of the maybe simple shift that leaders can make that actually helps them be people that perform better?
Yeah, there are a couple little shifts that leaders can make to help people perform better. I think the first one is don't be brief, be clear. Sometimes we don't realize the power of our words, especially in a world where we're texting, slacking, emailing, video calling, FaceTiming, meeting in person. It's easy for things to get miscommunicated. I'll never forget a leader, Adriel, she had an idea for a junior teammate, Brian. So she sent him a calendar invite for an 8 a.m. meeting the next morning. It had no subject line, no agenda, just said meeting. Brian thought he was about to get fired.
He's getting fired. Exactly. That's
Right?
what.
And it was just about a project. So what she's learned is to be brief and clear. What she does is if she has an idea like that, she'll write a subject title saying quick chat hyphen good thing. And it's just that simple pivot that makes all the difference, right? So don't just be brief, make sure you are clear, right? First. The second one I would say is don't be hasty, be thoughtful. Sometimes certain things should not be more reply all emails, right? Rushing, pick up the phone, right?
Yeah.
Knowing when to have a different medium for a conversation to show your tone, not have that 30-person meeting where only six people talk. Instead, have the six people that need to be there and the other 24 get a note summary of what happened and what are next steps and no guilt, right? Like they get the AI summary, they get the video recording, but they don't need to waste their time. Um, the third one is don't forget to show gratitude. And I know I talked about this in the story of Kelsey, but taking that time to really ask your team, when have you felt most valued? When have you felt most motivated, especially in a world of nonstop change and where we're stretched? And you'll be surprised that it can look different for different team members. So knowing what might be two or three rituals that matter can help. I know those that are more digital natives really get the value or the gratitude when the leader actually responds to the big deck, right? Otherwise it shoots out and they have no idea if they got it. There's not acknowledgement. Taking that time to just have the quick acknowledgement versus the other side um, of someone who, really feels that connection in person and that quick acknowledgement when they meet in person or they have a lunch or they have that team meeting. So taking the time to know, what type of gratitude really resonates with them. So to summarize, it's don't just be brief, be clear, don't be hasty, be thoughtful, and don't forget to show gratitude.
So, let me just ask you on brief and clear, is that true for bad news as well?
For bad news, we do a few things. It depends on the situation, right?
Yeah.
So, I think the first is be clear,
Yeah.
right? We have to be clear when there's bad news. I'll never forget one leader he's a CEO I coach, and he had trouble sharing bad news. And one time he was trying to fire someone, and at the end of it, he couched it so much that at the end of it, the person on the other side was confused, and he was like, "So am I getting fired?" Like he didn't even know because it was
Hmm.
so vague. So remember, your job as a leader is to be clear. I think with that, you have to understand when delivering bad news, the how, right? Am I using the right medium, right? Is this a phone call? Is this a live meeting? Can it wait for the live meeting? Is this something I really need to share the 10 minutes before the meeting? The
Yeah.
bad news, even if it's not a lot of time, it's brief because it will set up the meeting correctly. So it's very situation dependent. But what we have to ask ourselves is, how can I design this in the best medium with the right tone, with the right communication? And it's a lot like the think sandwich, right? Think, add what you need and design.
Yeah. That's so smart. So as you know, right, leaders are under pressure to move quickly, always. But at the same time, a lot of our teams are like feeling burnt out. So I guess, how do you maybe advise some of the best leaders that you've studied? Really, how do they balance what we talked about, sort of the beginning, both speed and performance,
Yeah.
which matters, but also with empathy and morale?
Yeah. So, we're living, I think, in an era of speed. I don't think this is the age of AI. I think AI is just a tool. I think it's the age of speed, right? Where anyone can get the knowledge instantly. That is the single biggest difference. And actually, it may sound counterintuitive, but what leaders have to do best now, because people can work so fast, they can respond, they can get a tool to do something, is to know how to slow down and reflect and ask questions like, what are we actually trying to solve for here? There's so many times when I've talked to leaders recently where they're like, how do we use AI? How do we use AI? And I'm like, where do you not need AI? Like, have you actually asked that versus having your team go down a rabbit hole of a tool where you actually don't need it? And
Yeah.
then let's talk about where you need it. So it's, the first step here, I would call it reflection. And where do you need to take that pause and design for smart reflection of what are we solving for? That's the first step of the think sandwich. How are we designing? I'll call it like thinking speed bumps, where we're actually thinking together, where someone's not like looking at a tool or some screen, but designing a vision, getting people aligned, understanding sentiment, reading between the lines. We used to think about the old-fashioned meeting. People don't even look into the eye of others now in physical meetings. Research is showing that eye contact is decreasing because they're busy looking at the screen in the in-person meeting. So slowing down, building that space for reflection, and even simple things like knowing when to, like, one tool around this is like the power of the schedule send. Right, email, right? So instead of sending something at 9 p.m. at night, freaking out your team, like the story I shared about the meeting invite, schedule it to go out the next morning. Respect boundaries. Check in before you move things up. Um, have a meeting that's the no PowerPoint, no AI meeting around logic and discussing the problems that we're seeing in the company before we bring in all the tools and all the data. Those are the things that I think are going to actually be more scarce now. The reflection, the gut intuition, the spaces for thinking. And that's what matters even more.
Yeah, I personally can use some of that advice as somebody who was emailing at 2 a.m. this morning to my team, and obviously not expecting a response, but it was just because I needed to get it out of my inbox
Right.
and to
Take
move
the
things
time to
along.
schedule it for 8 a.m. or 9 a.m.
Yep,
It's just as well.
yep. So you listen, spoken on some of the biggest stages in the world, and you're also known for your love of Bollywood dance,
Yes.
which is great. So I'd just love to know, do you think, has that creative side of you maybe influenced a little bit about how you think about teamwork, energy, building connections at work, or is like that a bridge too far?
Yeah. Well, as fellow, health and fitness lovers, I was a very shy and introverted girl growing up. And as an immigrant kid, as someone who struggled with communication, one of the ways I was able to bridge connection was through loving Bollywood dance and sharing it with others. And it's a type of Indian dance. It's basically change the light bulb. It's the signature move if you want to learn it. And what I realized is it gave me a tool to help bridge connection in new ways and shift energy and change conversation and melt silos of thinking, ideas, differences, and distances. And I have found that I've been able to use Bollywood dance as a metaphor and even as a tool in my keynotes on stages as a way to break out of that siloed energy that we feel in a conference hall, or as a way to boost energy when people have been sitting down for 30 hours where they've been thinking with their minds but are not activated with their full body. And I think it's a tool for me that I use in my speeches. It's a metaphor around teamwork, and energy is about bridging connection across difference. And I think in sort of the era we're living in now, that's digital and global and we can connect with anyone in the around the world, it's a reminder that bringing our difference to the table is going to be the greatest activator of synchrony and connection and joy versus, getting stuck in your silo.
I love it. Well, I hope we're going to change the light bulbs in San Diego.
Start
Yeah,
practicing
and that you've got a good walkout song ready. If not, we'll do a little homework, get that ready.
That's right. I can't wait. I'm just so grateful for the health and fitness professionals that have helped me in my life, and I can't wait to bring some of these tools, best practices, and maybe a little Bollywood dance your way.
Well, we can't wait to see you in San Diego, and I think maybe just in anticipation to seeing you, I'd love maybe just a final tip to help leaders think about how they come back as they think about building teams to really, truly win together.
I think in today's age, particularly with AI transforming everything right now in this industry, my number one tip is don't forget to be human. Add back the human, leave your fingerprints and be authentic.
It's almost like somebody needs to maybe create like a device that pinches you, like human pinch right now. And like, so maybe that's a market idea for somebody.
A device now for it?
Sometimes some might. So
Absolutely.
Erica, this was so much fun. I can't wait to have you in San Diego with us. Thank you for taking the time today to be together. Your message is so strong, so important. I've taken a lot away from it today in this podcast. I know our listeners will as well. And just can't wait to see you soon.
Thank you so much.
Hapana is proud to be the exclusive sponsor of Shorts with Liz Clark.